The Christmas season, in the context of the Ananda community, of which I've been a part since 1971, long time now, has a particular rhythm, which is we have Christmas, we have New Year, but the season really ends today, which is January 5th, which is the birthday of Paramhansa Yogananda, which is as holy an occasion as the birthday of Jesus for those of us who are dedicated to this path of self-realization. So I thought it would be worthwhile just to share a little bit about why that seems important and what that might mean. Most of you probably at least know about Autobiography of a Yogi, which was Yogananda's contribution to the spiritual revolution which is which is happening all over our planet at this time, and it's why I'm sitting here in front of you, because I was called into that at a very, very early age. Yogananda's book, and I highly recommend the first edition of that book. There's an orange one and a blue one. The orange one is about the 13th edition, and it's been edited many times. The original edition is blue, available from Crystal Clarity. That's just a little bit of a detail, but I always like to put it in when I'm talking about it. Almost everyone who becomes interested in spiritual life from a dimension other than the conventional, institutional, East or West, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, any of that, once you begin to start thinking much more deeply about not how the forms and the rituals have developed over time, but what is my own inner reality in relation to my true destiny, my purpose in life, and the presence of God. And I don't shy away from the word God. God means Satchidananda. That's a Sanskrit definition. Ever existing, ever conscious, ever new joy. It is not religion. Religion is what comes afterwards. Spirituality is who we are. It's just the nature of who we are. In the Indian tradition, it's called that which is just such a wonderful way to say it. It's just that which is. It's the way that we're made. There's countless things in human life that are just simply the way we are made. We have to eat in order to live. If we take a knife and we slice our wrists, we will die. If we jump off of a high building, we cannot fly. This is just that which is. And it's obvious in all these other ways, but it's also obvious internally if we learn to pay attention and to interpret what we're actually experiencing. This is why know thyself is the fundamental principle of all life, but of all spiritual life, especially according to the principles of that which is. Paramhansa Yogananda was born on January 5th, 1893. He's the last and the most, not the most recent, but one of the more recent in an endless line of God-realized masters who just entered the story, who, out of compassion for all of our struggling efforts, I mean, the Buddha, Krishna, Christ himself, all of them, Chaitanya, Sri Ramakrishna, the list is very long, and then there's all the saints, Saint Teresa, Saint Francis, Padre Pio, and on and on. Great souls who have a revelation, who see that which is, and choose to come back and help us. So Yogananda is in that magnificent tradition. 1893 he was born, and he was born to help bring about the unification of East and West, which is all part of a whole other reality that's going on the planet right now, in which there's globalization and all this technological advance, the result of which is that we're breaking down barriers. That's what we see happening. We're breaking down barriers, we're breaking down forms, we're breaking down ideas of separation, and we're beginning to understand the inner reality that unifies us all behind everything. And a very critical element of that entire movement is the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramhansa Yogananda, which was published in 1946. The original 1946 edition is still available from Crystal Clarity, as I was saying earlier, Crystal Clarity Publishers. And it helped launch, and it continues to guide and inspire the spiritual revolution that we are all part of today. Almost everyone, as I was starting to say, who begins to really turn their search inward, instead of just looking around trying to make this world, they realize this world external circumstances work. We realize I have to change my consciousness, And then from that, everything else will follow. This is what Yogananda writes about in this book. And it's not merely the ideas in that book, which are remarkable and extraordinary things are described in there. The deathless master Babaji in the Himalayas, the resurrection of Yogananda's guru Sri Yukteswar, who returns with his tales of what the astral world is like. And just, I mean, there's so many just gems within the middle of it. You read that book, as I have now over and over again, and you just notice a phrase that you never noticed before. Like somewhere in the astral, when Sri Yukteswar is in the astral world, for example, he makes a reference to mermaids. I mean, it's just one word. I read that book 10 times before I really noticed the word mermaids. Mermaids, what do I do with that? But that's just a very small example of words like spirit is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. Thoughts are not individually created, but they are universal, and we merely attune to them. It's a revolution, a complete revolution in the way we define ourselves and define our lives. And that was Yogananda's divine assignment. Just as simple as that. He said he was sent to show that the original teachings of Jesus and the original teachings of Krishna, and it's interesting, Christ and Krishna have this, their origin point is the same, and it means the anointed one. So each of them had a name, but their title was the description of their state of consciousness. And Krishna has been the guiding force in the East, and Christ has been the guiding force in the West. Both of their teachings have become Hinduism and Christianity, but it's the original revelation of the master that really defines what the teaching is. And after that, well-meaning, or sometimes not so well-meaning, but individuals of lesser state of consciousness work with that revelation and begin to interpret it. Gradually it solidifies, it becomes institutional. In the Indian tradition, in the Bhagavad Gita, it says simply, so periodically, a God-realized master comes again to help bring it back to its origin point. And Yogananda said he was such a master. And not to refute, but just to re-express. When Yogananda was asked by his direct disciple, Swami Kriyananda, who is, of course, my link to all of this, he said, Swami Kriyananda asked Yogananda, is this a new religion? Yogananda said, no. First of all, there is no such thing as a new religion. If there is an eternal truth that is infinite, it doesn't become new. It can be rediscovered, re-expressed, but it can't be recreated. It's a non sequitur. It just doesn't follow. So when Yogananda was asked, is this a new religion? He said, no, it's a new expression. Because everything has changed. In the Bible, it's so interesting because Christ was talking to people in everyday terms. And he said things like, if your sheep falls into the ditch on the Sabbath, would you not retrieve the sheep and rather than let him die in the ditch? Now, of course, you're not supposed to work on the Sabbath. You're not supposed to do anything. So if you go in the ditch and lift out your sheep, then you might be violating the laws of the Sabbath. But at the same time, the sheep is a living creature and it's your livelihood. So do you let it die? You see, there are all these complicated questions, and that's why Jesus used that example. And so I read it and I think, gee, I don't know. And then I think, but gosh, I don't observe the Sabbath. I work every day on the Sabbath. And come to think of it, I don't have any sheep. So it's very obscure to me. But it wasn't at all obscure when Jesus said it. He was expressing a universal truth and trying to help people see through it. Do you put new wine into old wine skins? Well, as it happens, I don't have any new wine, and I don't have any wine skins either. Wine comes in bottles if I buy it at all, which I don't. But if I did, then new means I just got it from the grocery store, not that I just You see how complicated? The teaching is still the same, but the expression of it becomes complicated. And then overlaid. So the Gita says, somebody comes and says it again. And that's exactly what Yogananda did. Not to present himself, but just to bring us back. And that power to shift is only, the vehicle for it can be the written word. The vehicle for it can be the spoken word. It can be the devotion of the disciples. Someone like me. I mean, here I am on the internet because we have the possibility of doing that, talking to all of you and reaching increasingly large numbers of people, just telling you this new expression that Yogananda was born to bring about, hey guys, things have changed. Let's think about it differently. We feel differently now, and our world is very changed from even, just even a few decades ago. And so, but truth isn't changed. It's just that we see things differently, and we need to talk in terms of what is really going on now. But it's much more even than just the teachings. I'm a great believer in really trying to use your intelligence to understand things clearly. And this has always been my approach to life. But the heart and the intelligence work together, because the intelligence is motivated by what we feel. So the interesting thing about Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi, everything he did, and his photograph and his eyes and his voice, is that what they convey to us, even through the medium of all those words, is it's a vibration of consciousness. And it's a vibration of consciousness that resonates with our own. And that's where the transformation really takes place. And one of the things that Yogananda really wanted to bring through Autobiography of a Yogi is the concept of the necessity for us to receive wisdom through the channels that have the capacity to really offer it to us, to align ourselves with the vibration of upliftment that a master can bring to us. This is Christianity has preserved this aspect of it in many ways, and it's ironic in a very certain sense because Jesus represents the West. But Jesus is Christianity, even as the churches practice it, is the most guru-oriented religion in the world, really, because it's all about the understanding that when we align ourselves with the God-realized master, their vibration comes in and shifts us. And when we attune ourselves with them, then all of a sudden we really know. People are always asking me, how can I tell if this is true intuition? How can I tell if I'm really being guided? That's the right question, because we have to be a little suspicious about just what comes to us through our own minds, because the intelligence is strongly influenced by the heart. And the heart is filled with likes and dislikes and fears and aspirations and longings and regrets. And how often, yes, when the heart is aligned and calm, we get a true perception of reality. But how often we do something because it feels right, and only later that it realize that it feels right because it was exactly aligned with everything that I already want, and that it was not really aligned with everything that my higher and deeper self aspires to become. And this is exactly what the masters bring us. Yogananda, in his book, because this is his birthday, this is what I'm talking about, the New Testament, the Bible, because it lives in there, the Bhagavad Gita, in the Buddhist scripture. Every time a great master has offered us a truth, or a great saint like Francis or Clare or Padre Pio more recently, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, every time we hear that voice, we hear the concept, but what we really hear is the vibration. And that vibration is the vibration of joy. And that vibration, above all, it's as simple as this: that which I am, so are you. That which I do, as Jesus said, you shall do, and greater things. And God is center everywhere. That's what Yogananda says. God is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. The center of the divine is within our own heart. That is the revolution. That's why it leads to meditation. That's why it leads to community. That's why it leads to every good thing, because the center of the divinity is in our own hearts. But we get confused. when we try to get there. And thus, the necessity for a master, the necessity for a teacher. You don't even try to learn to play the piano without somebody to help you. You go every week for your lesson, and then you come home and practice. And that's how you learn, because the teacher can tell you, no, I know that looks like the easy way to do it, but that's not really going to take you where you want to go. Every concrete thing. When I was 10 years old, I learned how to sew. And my teacher's name, ironically, was Mrs. Taylor, which was great fun for the situation. And what I learned in sewing, which has served me my entire life, if you look for a shortcut, it'll come out crummy. Just as simple as that. Because I kept looking for shortcuts, and my teacher kept showing me that if I didn't do it right, it wasn't going to come out right. When I finally accepted that, I learned to become a very good seamstress, which has served me my whole life. If I'm trying to transform myself, what makes me think that I can figure it out all alone? And source matters. Lineage matters. We can be very, very clever, but we only can see what we're capable of seeing. So we really want, if we're trying to get to the top of the mountain, we want somebody to guide us from the top of the mountain. And this isn't a question of my proving to you that Paramhansa Yogananda has something to offer. I'm just saying to you, wow, isn't this magnificent that the possibility even exists? And is it worth exploring? What do you think? Read the book. Listen to the voice. Read the New Testament. Read the Bhagavad Gita. It's the principle that is so important. That which is one of the fundamental principles that we see in our life all the time. And as above, so below, is that we need help. That's all. We need help. We need somebody who knows how to do it to help us do it. So today is Yogananda's birthday. And we celebrate the fact that out of the profound compassion of his heart, he chose to assume a physical body of Paramhansa Yogananda, Mukunda Lal Ghosh he was before he became Swami Yogananda and then became Paramhansa, which is a title given to one who is fully realized. There it is. And then in the way of our times, he wrote a book. He wrote an autobiography, which has now been translated into, dozens of languages, and is the unifying principle behind almost every teacher or speaker or aspirant who says, wait a minute, what is really going on here? Isn't that fun? Isn't that marvelous? And isn't it marvelous that he was so in tune with our age? He's creative. He lived among people. He didn't go off into the Himalayas and just disappear and never speak again. And he inspired countless disciples, and those disciples continue to spread the message. I mean, what a joyous, wonderful time this is. And today is the birthday. And whenever the birthday or the death day of any of these great saints or masters happen, the veil is a little thinner. And it stays thinner sort of all around it. So whatever aspiration we may have, whatever desire we may have to reach out and connect with this vibration, now is a good day to do it, friends. Now is a good day to do it. Well, honestly, every day is a good day to do it. But at a time like this, when the vibration is especially energized and celebrated, and that's why I wanted to speak to you. Happy birthday, Yogananda. Happy birthday to me, because this is always the opportunity for a rebirth of dedication, attunement, freedom, joy, Satchidananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new joy. So happy birthday, my friends. I hope you have a wonderful day.